Money has to move. It's always moving. It never stops moving. Now, there are times when it stops moving to you.
And why would that be?
Because you're not investing in being investable. Like, there are things that we do. If you go to a restaurant, I don't care if the waitress is snotty. Give her a tip because money has to move. When someone gives you a compliment, I don't care if the dress is 20 years old and you haven't been able to fit it. Right. Just say thank you. Yeah. So that money, the energy of abundance, because that's what a compliment is, it's the energy of abundance, so that it keeps moving.
Today I have Dr. Darnyelle Jervey Harmon, and her name literally means the secret place where dreamers go to dream. Wow. She is the best-selling author of Move to Millions, the founder of an incredible company that is on the Inc. 5000 list, and she works with entrepreneurs to get to the $1 million mark. Her work around spirituality and money is some of the most profound I have ever experienced, and I can't wait for you to experience it in this episode. Welcome to Plenty. I'm your host, Kate Northrup, and together we are going on a journey to help you have an incredible relationship with money, time, and energy, and to have abundance on every possible level. Every week, we're going to dive in with experts and insights to help you unlock a life of plenty. Let's go fill our cups.
Please note that the opinions and perspectives of the guests on the Plenty podcast are not necessarily reflective of the opinions and perspectives of Kate Northrup or anyone who works within the Kate Northrup brand.
Darnyelle, thank you for being here.
I'm so excited to be here, Kate.
So I've just had you in my ear. I've been snuggling up with you at bedtime, reading your book. And I want to start with, you said something on your podcast recently. I'm sure you say it a lot, but I'd never heard anybody say it in just this way, which is money is a mirror. Money is a mirror. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the way you see money is about the way you see yourself. So if you feel unworthy, then you see money as a source of lack, right? I believe money flows away from those who feel that there's a shortage of it. And if you see yourself as a shortage, i.e. I'm not worthy, you're going to see money the same exact way. So we've heard it said before, money just amplifies. It gives you more of what you already are. So if you are mean, money's going to make you mean it, right? If you are benevolent, money's going to make you much more benevolent and philanthropic, whatever the word is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say, right? And I think with money being a mirror, it's just going to make you more of who you already are. So the people who come into money but aren't used to having money, don't understand money, have always seen money as a source of frustration or discontentment, are going to be that with money. Right? That's why lack mindset doesn't matter where you came from and whether you were born into money or not. It's how you see yourself as a reflection through the money that you have, even the things you buy. Like when we're faking it until we make it, for those of us who believe that, I hate that phrase.
You too.
Oh my gosh, it drives me crazy. I'm like, no, why don't you just be it? Anyway.
Yeah, it's not faking it. It's actually being it now.
Yeah, just be it right now, because that'll make it come so much faster if you would just be it, right? Yeah. But when we are faking it till we're making it, we got to have all the labels. And we think that by having the labels, it's going to make people think that we're suddenly worthy. But guess what? You're still not worthy. You just have nice shoes or a nice handbag or the right belt, right? And so for me, the reason why I love talking about money so much is because I know what it's like to not have, and I know what it's like to have a lot. And I'm the same person on both sides of it. And that's the important thing that I want people to understand.
And what shifted inside you or in your behavior to have the experience of experiencing having a lot? Because you do, you have a multi-million-dollar business. You teach people how to create that in a really strategic, systemized way, very organized. I love it. As someone who doesn't think as systematically, I'm in great respect. So was there anything in particular that shifted inside you, given that you are obviously the same person as before, but what made the difference?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that changed was that I stopped believing everything other people told me about money, right? And when I say other people, I mean my parents, right? That's where we first learn whatever we believe our relationship to be with money, it's inherited. It's not even our own. It's whatever we we were taught and we caught, right? And so I was taught that you have to work hard for money. I caught that money is never there for us, right? I grew up poor, should have technically have been middle class because my dad made really great money at his job, but he was an addict. So he smoked all of his extra money. And so that left us with no frills cornflakes from the supermarket, right? And so as a result of that, I took all of those lessons, and then all you need is a glimpse of possibility that what you thought to be true isn't. And that's enough to start unraveling the thread and turning the sweater into a ball of yarn, right? And that's exactly what happened. I started to unravel the threads and realized that that wasn't actually it. I remember when I got to corporate America and I was told you have to work hard for money, right? You have to show up. You have to be there 16 hours a day because that's what we in the United States, we think is living, right? When you work to live. So wrong. But anyway, I played the game just like everyone else. But eventually I got burnt out. And I'm like, okay, this can't be the way that it is. I started looking at the people who were truly wealthy, not the facade wealthy people because they had all the labels. And I recognized that what was different about them was the way they looked at money. So I believe that poor people see money as just the mechanism to pay their bills. And that's all it's about. I just got to pay these bills. If I could pay my bills, right? Middle class people still want to pay their bills, but they want to pay their bills in order to extend good credit so they can live beyond their means. But wealthy people, they want to make their money move. They see money as a mechanism to create more money. And so when I started to invest, put money out there so that it could move, because it's a flow, it's a currency, it's an energy, I noticed that it didn't require me to work hard in order to make more money. So I stopped. And I started challenging all of those beliefs.
Yeah. Was there one particular person or a few particular people who were that example that helped you begin to unravel that sweater?
Just to ask the questions. And they were like people who were far, far away, not anyone I knew personally. I did not ever know anyone who was wealthy in my immediate life circumstance. But there were a few people that just watching, and I read a lot of books, right? I mean, I've been reading a book a week for I don't know how long. Now I listen to a book a week more than I actually read a book a week. But there was a few people really early on. I've always been a follower of Warren Buffett, like always. And just, he lives so simply.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, if his simplistic living is creating more, let's unpack what are the things that are happening, right? And so I became a millionaire before I had $1 million company because I learned how to invest and I learned how to put my money in the right places. And even when I filed bankruptcy, which we may get into or not.
Oh, we will,
because
you just brought it up.
Right, well, yeah. And I brought it up on purpose because it used to be a source of shame and now it's liberation.
Yes.
But even when I filed bankruptcy, I still had assets that were making millions of dollars because I didn't have to report my 401k,
right,
which was well invested. You know what I mean? And so for me, I think the biggest thing that has made the difference watching people or not watching the people is that we put too much emphasis on money. And if we would just stop making it a god and just let it be energy, everything would change.
And you do have a very strong relationship with God.
I do.
And money, but God first, obviously.
Yes. And because of my relationship with God, I have a strong relationship with money because God talks about money, wealth, and possessions 2,300 times in the Bible.
And what do you think is some of the misunderstanding? Because it's such a common conditioning to believe that it is more pious, more spiritual to not have money. Where does that come from? Is it a misunderstanding of the Bible?
No.
What's going on?
I don't think it's a misunderstanding of the Bible. I believe that religion is an interpretation of what it is that God said. And so when we think about Catholicism, which Christianity has its roots in, Catholicism says you are more holy if you are poor, right? That's why the monks and the nuns take a vow of giving up everything to go and follow God, right? Because that's what they believe will get you closer to heaven. But, and either or, we could cancel out that statement or we could keep that statement and say, and from the beginning of the Bible, From Genesis chapter 2, God starts talking about money, wealth, and possessions because it's something that we need to normalize. Money is only a thing and a stigma if you think that it's beneath or above you. Again, how you see money is about the way you see yourself. So if I could get you to see yourself the way that God sees you, then money won't be this thing that is arduous and hard for you to reach for. Instead, it'll become one with you. And once you're in alignment to it, it flows consistently in your life experience. But most people don't want to believe that. So to answer your original question, I think the scripture that jacks most people up is 1 Timothy 6:10. Which says, for the love of money is the root of all evil. Right. For they that coveteth after have erred from the faith, and that has caused them sorrow. The problem with reading that scripture at face value, because sure, it does say the love of money, but the problem is the Bible was written in 3 languages and English wasn't one of them. So we're translating, and just like when you have a conversation with Mike and something gets lost in translation, the same thing happened in the Bible. Yeah. So in translation, for the love of money got misinterpreted. The word is actually the word avarice, A-V-A-R-I-C-E. If we look that word up in the dictionary, it actually means extreme greed. So what the scripture really says is extreme greed is the root of all evil. And Darnyelle doesn't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Right? In that same chapter, Timothy, who's a new leader in the church, is being mentored by Paul, and Paul is preparing him because his territory is filled with wealthy people. And he wants Timothy to understand what to do with the wealthy people when they come. So if we go down to verse 17 through 21, God gives the edicts, if you will, of what to tell the rich people. Because it's okay to have money. He says 3 things. He says, number 1, don't be arrogant or high-minded. Number 2, do good deeds. And number 3, remember the source of your wealth. That's all we have to do to have money. But we want to gloss over that because of all the other scriptures. And I believe, and I say this on lots of podcasts, but it may get someone's panties in a bunch. I don't really care. But I believe that religion is designed to separate and to create fear for man-made gain. And so often what we experience is, especially because often the people who are in religion are not reading the word and learning and building a relationship with God for themselves. They're taking whatever the man or woman at the front of the church is saying as if it's the law. That is very dangerous to do. And I can only say this because I used to be one of them. The only time I opened my Bible was at church. And I was the girl who's like, where's Genesis? Genesis is the first book of the Bible. And I'd be like, where do I go when they're like, turn to Genesis 1 and 1, right? Is that in the back? Because I didn't have my own personal relationship, right? And so today, now that I do, and as I read the word and I study it and I understand and I seek what God is saying, I don't have to take what the man or woman at the front of the church is saying as if it's the law. We always should be discerning and trying the spirit by the spirit. And some people, they get it exactly right. Some people get it wrong. And we're human. Of course. We don't all always get it right? So this isn't an attack on religion, but I think it is dangerous and it's irresponsible to have a religious affiliation with Christianity without having a relationship with God.
I agree. So beautiful. What happened for you when you began? What was that moment like, and what was going on in your life when you started to have a personal relationship with God?
Yeah, you did read my book. Okay, so I was engaged to be married the first time. And 3 months before my wedding, my ex-fiance confessed that he had gotten an older woman in our church pregnant. And so, I know everybody, let me pause for dramatic effect. So 3 months before the wedding, he's gotten this older woman pregnant. Now, what's not exciting, but what's important to note is that 9 months before that, I got pregnant.
Okay.
And had an abortion. I made the choice to have an abortion because he was adamant that he didn't want to have children. We were like 23, 24 years old, right?
Yeah.
And I did it because I didn't want to be like my mom and my sisters who all had all these babies by all these men that weren't taking care of them. Yeah. And I didn't want that for myself. And so I did make a very tough choice and regretted it almost instantly. And even, when my husband and I were trying to get pregnant and we weren't able to get pregnant, was like, oh my gosh, it's because I had that abortion back in the day. Although that was my own stuff and it wasn't God's. But anyway, as a result of that circumstance, I decided, I knew immediately, Kate, that it wasn't done to me, it was done for me. I was so clear that I believe that salvation, which, is big in the faith realm, is when God snatches you out of harm's way. And I believe that man would have harmed me, not necessarily physically or emotionally, but he would have detracted from the destiny that I was supposed to be on, because I have free will and I could have made that choice. And so God loved me so much that he was unwilling. And he also knew that unless something cataclysmic happened, I was going to marry that fool. And so he had to create something really cataclysmic
Dramatic.
in order to get my attention, right? And so, but that was the thing. And so when all of that happened and the dust started to settle, I was very clear that it wasn't God who did this to me. He did it for me. And as a result, it kind of made me fall in love with him, and I wanted to know him and know him better. And so for me, my onset was not just Christianity. I studied everything because I wanted to understand, who is God? I believe that there's only one God, true and living. I believe that people through religion choose to serve that God in different ways. Yeah. And I think it's everybody's business to decide how they want to build their relationship with God. As for me, I have chosen that my center is still based in Christianity. So I say I subscribe to the doctrines of Christianity. I do love Jesus. I do believe in Jesus. But I'm not religious, and I'm not going to follow any rites and rituals just because you said I should. I'm going to see what the word has to say and how that is indoctrinated into how I live. I do have a true desire to honor and please God with everything that I am. It's the only outcome I'm attached to, that he would get the glory from my life and from my life experience. And I believe that being present and vocal about things like money and even my relationship with God is going to open up an opportunity for other people to explore theirs.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Something I've heard you talk about is being obedient. And that's not something that was like in my lexicon. I've heard you speak about it, and also my friend Jerisha Hawk. Do you know
I
Jerisha?
do know Jerisha, yes.
Yeah. So I honestly hadn't heard that before, because I didn't grow up in a church, and I love it so much. And so I'm just curious, can you speak more about what it means to you to be obedient and how you're following that these days in your business and in your life?
Yeah, I believe that obedience is doing right. I think it's really simple. I think we complicate so many things. And I think that when you are, we're all human. I was going to say when you're a human. I think that as humans,
during those times in your life.
Right. I think that as humans, we all know right from wrong. And we all know the results of choosing wrong over right. I believe that obedience is making a decision to do what's right, even when it doesn't feel good, even when it doesn't make sense. And that to me is obedience, because I have chosen to be in alignment with God, meaning I know who I am, I know what I was sent here to do, and I've decided to operate in accordance to that mandate that was placed on my life before I was even thought of by my parents, right? The scripture says in Jeremiah 1:5, before you were formed in your mother's womb, God knew you and approved you, which means, and I know you can get behind this, Kate, like we came here as abundance. We came here approved. Like there's nothing wrong with us. Now, some of us grew up in families where we were taught that something is wrong with us because of whatever our parents were going through in the mirror we presented for them. And that flowered our own opinion of ourselves and make us question who we are. But I think in true sincerity and honoring the alignment of who we are, we know the difference between right and wrong. And obedience is just doing what's right, right? Like, I know I should drink 8 glasses of water a day. Being obedient means I'm going to drink 8 glasses of water every day, right? Obedience means I know that if I have a team of people that I've hired, I'm going to pay them well so that they can live, right? Like, I think we know right from wrong. And so for me, obedience is really, I break it down a little differently in the book. I talk about it being operational obedience, right? So operating your business as the CEO, recognizing that the E isn't for everything. It's for executive, right? It's for strategically presiding over the vision that is your business and putting yourself in position to actually be the executive presiding over your business. And in order to be the executive, you can't be in the day-to-day, right? You can't be the one serving the clients. Now, there's a point in time where every CEO started out doing the very thing that now other people do, because that's the only way we could create standard operating procedures. But there has to come a point in time where you get higher. You rise above the day-to-day within your organization so that you can actually facilitate an environment for it to grow. And so obedience is doing right. It's customer service, right? It's leadership. It's being understanding. It's recognizing that, yes, you might create policies and procedures, but you're a human being interacting with other human beings. And because you're a human, you can decide to act like a human and not like a business and stand behind the policy if the right thing to do is to support a person in a different way. And so I allow that to be my guidepost for everything that it is that I do every single day. And it also allows our team to operate within the core values that we've established as a company.
I want to go back to the story that you dropped in about filing bankruptcy and what happened there. And then I love the side note, which I didn't know, that you also meanwhile were doing that with like still a net worth of over $1 million. I mean, that's just like the juiciest and like very subversive in the most beautiful way. Yes. So just tell me the story of that and what was the greatest gift you received from that chapter?
Yeah. So I am a money teacher, right? It is my anointing. It is my gift. And in order to teach money, I had to have experienced everything with money, right? So I recognize that everything that I've been through up and through my life was so that I could use it as a point of teaching someone else, right? So having said that, like many of us here in the United States, I think the statistics say 63% of adults live paycheck to paycheck. We're financially illiterate. We do not understand money. I was too. So went to college on a full academic scholarship, spent no money to go there, except on the quad, very early in my academic collegiate career, got a credit card for the t-shirt. $500 limit turned into $2,500 limit turned into $5,000, $10,000, $25,000. Yeah. By the time I was graduating from college, I had enough credit card debt to have paid student loans or to have been having to pay student loans off.
Yeah.
By the time I was 30, I had $250,000 in credit card debt. I am not proud to say that to you. I bought a lot of things, and unfortunately, Kate, they weren't Gucci and Prada. The things that I bought were like paying someone's light bill or taking all my friends on a vacation, like flossing for love, for lack of a better way to describe it, looking for love in all the wrong places. I'm a middle child. We are invisible in a lot of ways. And add to that the fact that my mom went to jail during my 8th birthday party. And so I had significant abandonment issues, and all I wanted was to be loved, right? Maslow's hierarchy of needs at its best. That's all I wanted, was that sense of security and to know that I belonged. And the way that I found belonging was through buying things for other people. And it added up to $250,000. I robbed Peter to pay Paul until I just couldn't keep the ball moving anymore. And it was coming very crucial to the point where they were going to start going to find the money, and they would have found my investment accounts. So I did the unthinkable. I didn't want to do it. I used to work in a bank. I had an 800 credit score, so much shame and guilt and all the things. But I did it. And believe it or not, God actually told me to do. He actually, in my spirit, very clear that this was what I needed to do. And that's when I resolved to do it, when I felt in alignment to it. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And here's why. So I was able to follow Chapter 7, which means everything got discharged. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. They could have taken my house and my car, but the trustee didn't. I was able to stay in my home and keep my car as long as I made the payments. And I was forced to take a financial literacy course. Now, I do not know if this trustee ever gave that mandate to anyone else who came in his trustee court. But I know he gave it to Darnyelle Antoinette. I think he felt sorry for me. I think he looked at the fact that I was like 30-some years old and I had $250,000 in credit card debt. And he's like, if we don't teach this girl about money, she'll be back in my trustee courtroom in the future. And so the course that I took, there were 2 textbooks. One was just, basic generic money, like how to budget and those types of things. And the other book was A Happy Pocket Full of Money by David Cameron Giacondi.
When you wrote that I was like, no.
Oh my
way.
gosh, it changed my life.
What?
It changed my life. David Cameron Giacondi, if you are out there, thank you. You changed my life. You changed my life. Because I realized that money is spiritual.
Yeah.
And that it is just energy. It was this tangible, tactical thing that I could not keep in my hands for 35 years. And I read that book and I took that class and all of a sudden, I got it.
Wow.
And it changed everything. And so I made some really good investment decisions. And when I say I mean my financial advisor. Yeah. I had gotten in Microsoft really early.
Love it.
And that did me very well.
Yeah.
So my portfolio was banging. And within 3 years after filing bankruptcy, I had in liquid $1 million.
Wow.
Because I applied the principles in the book to the practical strategy of money and money management. And I made $1 million liquid in addition to what was in my 401k.
That's incredible. This story is so good. I want to know though, for somebody who you know, self-described did not have financial literacy, how is it that you managed to like sock away this portfolio at the same time?
Well,
I'm fascinated by the combination of those two things.
So here's the thing, like I had mentors and coaches before. We called them coaches and mentors, right? And when I got to corporate America, one of the very first things I realized to do, and this is going to probably sound funny coming from me, a Black girl, talking to you, a white girl, but the white people around me, they did things that were foreign to me. They went on vacation. They had financial advisors. I'm like, oh, I gotta get me one of those, right? So 21, 22 years old, I'm starting in corporate America. I got a financial advisor.
Brilliant.
And I was not making a lot of money when I started. Entry level, 217 representative in my company, like $19,049 or $41 the first year. So by 3 years later, when I bought my house, I bought a house at 22.
Wow.
Or not even 3 years later, like a year later, I bought my house at 22. Because a mortgage was the same as rent.
Yeah.
Why rent if you could be buying a house, right? So I bought my first house and I got a financial advisor. And I got to buy my house with $1,000. That was all I needed.
Wow.
First time home buyers.
It's a different time.
So and they gave you 6%, they matched.
Uh-huh.
So I put my 6% in to get my match. Like I did what my financial advisor said. And then I did the little questionnaire of my tolerance. I was young. I was in my early 20s. So I've got risk. I've got time to make it all back if it all goes away. And we got into some great stocks.
Yeah. And you had compounding interest on your side and the like time value of money. I'm just like, I am celebrating early 20s, Darnyelle. And I really wish I had done some similar things, and I just like deep respect. That's really cool. That's really cool. And just a beautiful example that like, there is beauty in every situation.
Absolutely.
And all situations, there's a lot of layers going on. And two things can be true at the same time.
Absolutely.
Because you were actually being super smart with money at the same time.
As I was being very
as you
reckless.
were like, trying to buy love.
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
It's fascinating, actually.
Interesting because I look at all of these things because, I have to help you with money, right? And I'm like, this is crazy. But again, I'm a teacher of money, so I have to have experienced everything in order to be able to help other people.
Yeah, no, it's great. Okay, so you talk about, obviously your brand is, and your book title and your podcast title is Move to Millions.
Yes.
And you speak about that money has to move because it's an energy.
Yes.
And there's something that I've heard you say now like many, many times, but you haven't said it here yet.
Okay.
So I want you to say it, which is about like how to make that money move. What are the two things you need to do?
Yeah, so you need to invest and be investable.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So the invest part I get, but the investable part, I think obviously I get that too, but like that was new. So can you just share what being investable means?
Yeah. So of course I'm called to entrepreneurs. So I'm talking primarily to entrepreneurs, but it works for people who work for other people too. And being investable means that you are marketable, that you solve a problem, right? Entrepreneurs solve a problem for profit.
Yeah.
The end. That's it. Money has to move. It's always moving. It never stops moving. Now, there are times when it stops moving to you.
And why would that be?
Because you're not investing in being investable. Like there are things that we do. If you go to a restaurant, I don't care if the waitress is snotty. Give her a tip because money has to move. When someone gives you a compliment, I don't care if the dress is 20 years old and you haven't been able to fit it.
Right.
Just say thank you.
Yeah.
So that money, the energy of abundance, because that's what a compliment is, it's the energy of abundance, so that it keeps moving. Just let it move.
Yeah. So something I heard you speak about recently was really about integrity, but specifically around investing in programs and not following through on your payments or on your commitment to the program. And that comes up from time to time, of course.
Right. It's the cost of
as
doing
a business owner,
Right.
like write-offs are real.
Yeah.
And I just really would love to hear you speak a bit about alignment and commitment and integrity as it relates to our money, because I think so many people, myself included in the past, so I just, you know, this is not separate from me, but like will wonder like, why is the money not showing up? And I think it's related to what you said with this integrity piece.
Yeah, so I'm going to go back a little bit to answer this question. So the reason I did that episode on my podcast is because every time a client defaults on one of our programs, I want to have this conversation with them.
Right.
And I don't, because I'm like, they don't even realize what they're doing. It's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt me.
That was the piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't realize it, right?
Yeah.
So I just mind my business. And I was working with a couple of clients who were having the same thing happen. And I just got frustrated. And it's like, you know what? I'm going to do an episode about it. And the truth is, it's principle. I believe God is principled. And most of the things I share, I can reference the Bible when I do. So Galatians 6:9 says, do not be deceived. God will not be mocked. A man will reap what he sows. Okay, so how does this translate into you signed up for the coaching program? You were excited, you were gung-ho, you gave your money, oh my gosh, I'm gonna change my life. And then maybe life happened to you, or maybe you didn't actually take the actions you need to take to get the result. Either way, you get disgruntled and you decide to stop paying the coach. And you think you're justified. You signed an agreement though. And that agreement that you signed said it was non-cancelable and likely that you had to pay for it no matter what and all the things. And you agreed to that. You put your name on the line and you said, this is what I'm going to do. Yeah. And then you decide to walk away from your obligation and you expect for money to move for you. Nah, it doesn't work that way. Because money is an energy, and because it's an energy, it is principled, and it is going to operate inside of the principle of how it moves. And when we default on programs, when we stop paying, when we do anything that we shouldn't do, we stop the flow of abundance. And so that's what you're doing. Now, you might still have some success, right? And I talk about in the episode about one particular client, right? You might have some early success, and you might think, whoa, I got away with it. But it's going to catch up to you, right? It's going to catch up. And whenever we ask this on our applications when people want to come into our programs, do you have any unpaid outstanding balance with any other coach that would prevent us from being able to help you? And in parentheses, I say accountability and integrity. And people do honestly say yes. Sometimes I'm like, well, tell me about it. I had one person that I was like, I'd love to work with you, but and I knew the person she owed money to. I was like, you got to go pay her before you can work with me. There's no way in the world I'm getting involved in the energy because you're going to blame it on me. And it ain't me, it's your energy because you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're not operating in integrity. And so we can't expect for money to move to us when we're not integrous because that's the principle of money. And so, I just want to say, I'm going to turn to the camera. So if you're out there and you owe somebody money, you were in a program, if life happened to you, I get it. We have it happen to us too. And we are human beings and we respond as human beings when clients hit a hardship. My recommendation is that you reach out to the person that you owe money and begin making payments. $25, $35, $50, $100, whatever you can reasonably afford, start paying them back so that your money will start moving. And what will happen is that you will see the abundance start to recirculate in your life. And as a result of it, the things that you've been praying for, the goals that you've been setting, the strategies you've been mapping out will actually start to work. But they will not work. They will not work in their entirety when you have defaulted and operated outside of the principles and the flow of abundance.
Amen. It's so good. And the piece that you said, which obviously you just explained so beautifully, but I just want to say it one more time, is that people think it's going to hurt the coach or the consultant. It's actually going to hurt them in the long run, because if we're out of alignment, if we're out of integrity financially, money doesn't feel safe with us.
That's right.
And it's just such a perfect example.
not coming.
And I love the way you said it. Now, you also spoke about doing a forgiveness process in your book, and then also on the podcast. And I want to know, what does a forgiveness process look like for you, and why is forgiveness such an important piece of prosperity?
Yes. So I'm going to answer the second part of the question first.
Great.
So the reason why forgiveness is such an important part of prosperity is because in Mark 11, verse 20 through 26, check the verses, they might not be inexact, but Jesus and the disciples are walking from Bethany to wherever they're going. And Jesus sees a fig tree and he decides he wants a fig Newton. Darnyelle's version of the Bible, not the actual Bible. There were no fig Newtons in the Bible. And so he wants a fig Newton. So he stops at the fig tree, but the fig tree is not producing. Well, I imagine he gets a little upset because he's hungry. He's hangry. And as a result, he curses the tree and tells the tree to die. But they keep walking.
Jesus did?
Jesus does.
Okay.
And they keep walking. The next day, the disciples and Jesus are walking back. The disciples see the tree all crumpled up, and they cannot believe that the tree actually died. Jesus sees this as a teachable moment. So he turns around and he says, listen. And he says it in scripture speak, verily, verily, I say unto you, you can say to any mountain, move, and it will if four things happen. And so we're talking about any mountain. The mountain of debt, the mountain of money, the mountain of wealth, the mountain of health, the mountain of your marriage, any mountain. Can tell it to move if you speak, if you believe, if you don't doubt, and you forgive. So forgiveness is a principle that keeps your mountains moving. And we all want mountains of money, don't we? And we want them to move, so we must forgive. So that's why forgiveness is so important. And it's one of the only commands that God makes often in the Bible, like forgive, 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 because we can't hold anything in. And you know this, right? Our nervous system, first and foremost, the lack in our body that gets trapped there because of unforgiveness will make disease happen.
Literally.
And it doesn't have to.
It lives in our cells.
Right.
Yeah.
If we would just release it. Right. And when you understand the power of forgiveness and releasing it from your cellular memory, it reinstates the flow and the alignment. So how do I do this? So I read a book called Forgiving Forward by Bruce and Tony Hebel. Okay. Highly recommend the book. When people buy my book on Amazon, the book that it says people most likely buy this together is Forgiving Forward. So shout out to the Hebels. And it really helps you to understand that forgiveness is for you. Most people, in my experience, don't forgive because they think that they're letting the other person off the hook, right? And forgiveness, if you ask me, is releasing them from the obligation of something that they did maybe when they weren't in their right mind, they weren't thinking straight, they were under control of some substance. It's releasing them from the obligation to still be held to being that person today, right? And when you forgive, it's a personal act. Do not call the person and tell them that you forgive them. Do not do it. You want to know why? Because they're not going to believe that you're still upset about that thing that happened 20 years ago, and they're going to piss you off all over again, and then you're going to have to keep running them through the protocol. So don't do that. Instead, do it yourself. So for me, what it looks like is writing, like, I do it every Sunday because I don't want to go into any week with any forgiveness or unforgiveness in my heart. So I literally write down, I have a forgiveness notebook, and I literally say, who do I need to forgive and for what? And I write the names and the reason why. Now, it could be my mom because of whatever. It could be a client because they defaulted. It could be a service provider because they didn't deliver. Yeah. It doesn't matter. Everybody, the man who cut me off, the girl who flipped me the bird in the supermarket line, whatever, everybody goes there. If I can remember them, I write them down. And then one by one, I choose to release them of the obligation of still being held to the thing that they did to me. I release them to their best and highest good. Now, does it always work the first time? No. Right. I've literally run the protocol, then gone to Walmart and ran into someone that I needed to forgive and could feel it all up in my body. Yeah. So it doesn't happen the first time. But for me, it's the act of constantly staying in the state of not holding them captive to something they did when they weren't thinking straight. Right. And it releases me from feeling like I'm somehow there's something wrong with me because they chose to do this thing to me.
Yeah.
And then it also removes me from it and makes it less about me. So I get to isolate from the issue itself, right? Like, I don't believe that any client that defaults on our program is defaulting on Darnyelle Antoinette, right? So I get to be separate from it. And because of that, I can let it go. I mean, I literally was just on Facebook the other day and made a comment on a post of somebody who owes me money. I'm not held to it.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
You're free.
I'm free. They're not my source anyway.
Right.
And so because I understand that, I don't have to get my panties in a bunch because they've made a decision that's going to hurt them more than it's going to hurt me. And in love, I can release them so that if I ever do see them out in public, it's not contentious. Yeah. It's just, hey, how are you? Right? And it just allows me to live better. It keeps me in alignment. It keeps me obedient. It keeps me operating in what I know I'm supposed to be doing to move my life and the purpose of my life forward.
Yeah. Why do you think that the $1 million mark matters so much?
Oh, I think because so many people haven't hit it.
What are I don't expect you to know these off the top of your head, but the
statistics
stats are
I know them.
You know
yeah,
them. Okay,
I say
great.
them all the time.
Great.
So
carry on.
4.2%. So there's 33 million small businesses in the United States. A small business is classified. It used to be 500 employees, but now they've raised it. It's 1,500 employees now, which is crazy to me. But
that
anyway,
sounds big, but
right,
regardless.
Yeah. But anyway, so there's 33 million small businesses. Of those small businesses, approximately 90% of them are solopreneur, non-employer entities. So that's where most of us play, right? Like we don't have employees or don't have a lot of employees. And when we look at that, 4.2% is the number of the whole 33 million that actually make 7 figures or more a year. That number gets smaller the deeper we go. So if we go to service-based businesses like you and me, 2.35%. If we go to women-owned service-based businesses, 1.9%. If we go to Black service-based businesses, 0.9%. If we go to Black women, 0.5%. So the statistics are abysmal. These are hundreds of thousands in comparison to multiples of millions. And in my opinion, a 7-figure business is the floor. It's not the ceiling, because it really gives you the ability to make money move. You can make people's lives different, right? You can be benevolent. I remember being 10 years old and saying, I'm going to be a philanthropist, right? A few years ago, I had the year of $10,000 check. So every check I wrote was for $10,000 to bless someone. Then I had the year of $25,000. Then I had the year of $50,000 checks. And I just love being able to give because I have resource to give. You can't be the change if you don't have any. And the reason why I think it's important in a business—
I've never heard that before. That was great.
Oh yeah, you can't be the change if you don't have any. Yeah, that's my play on the, be the change you want to see in the world. So here's the thing, like if you have $1 million company, you can hire people and pay them more than a living wage to support your mission and your vision and help you to expand your reach without compromising your values in the process. It allows you to leave a financial legacy. Like, most of us do not come from Rockefeller and Vanderbilt types of families where 700 years of wealth is already established and waiting for us, right? So it gives us an opportunity to shift the trajectory of who we are generationally when we have access to more. And $1 million is not a lot, right? So I said earlier, money flows away from those who feels that there's a shortage of it. Well, if you think $1 million is a lot of money, you won't ever make it, because it's not a lot. $1 million is really like $10 in the grand scheme of things. And until you hold that energy and allow that to flow through your body, you won't make millions. I run into a lot of people. I mean, they come to work with us because they want to get to the $1 million mark. I mean, it's what we do.
Yeah.
And, every year we do have clients that cross the $1 million mark. Everyone's not crossing the $1 million mark. And it's not because of the strategy, although everybody thinks it's just about the strategy. It's because they're not in alignment to it. They don't believe it's for them. Even though they consciously say they want it, subconsciously, they don't actually believe it's possible.
Yeah.
And that friction is going to stop the flow of money, stop the flow of abundance, stop the flow of opportunities, because it doesn't always show up as a check in your mailbox. Sometimes it's being invited to the right stage with the right person in the audience who has the ability to put you on a bigger stage, to put you in front of people who can give you the money, right? And those opportunities won't show up if you believe that any amount of money, even the biggest amount of money, is a lot of money. There's no such thing as a lot of money. It's always here. It's available all the time.
Yeah, it is. So good. What do you do with those beliefs when people come into your spaces and they don't believe that that's for them? Where do you recommend that they start? Because I would imagine some.
I shake them. No, I don't. I don't shake them.
Somebody listening has a belief that is not supporting them in terms of their prosperity.
Yeah. So we have to dissect the belief, right? So if we look at the word believe, BELIEVE, there's a lie smack dab in the middle of belief, right? What I mean is most of the things you believe are a lie. Yeah. So we've got to we got to pick it apart, right? Like if you believe you got to work hard for money, where did that come from? Oh, it's what my dad used to say every time I asked him for money. Well, is that really the truth? Has there ever been a time in your life where you got access to money and you didn't work hard? Well, yeah. I've had people just give me money. Oh, interesting. How is that possible if you have to work hard for it? See, now we've just realized that there's a lie in that belief. Yeah. And because we can find the lie, we can reframe it and reshape the belief. So that's conscious what we do. But I spent a lot of time helping people to reset their cellular memory and really understand how do they take the belief and turn it into a pattern that gets removed from their body, right? So that their nervous system is not adversely affected by this belief anymore. And it can be as simple as once you identify the belief, you create a keyword. And every time you feel that belief, you say your keyword. And there's like a whole mantra that you say. I'll give you the quick and dirty of it. But the quick and dirty of it is every time you hear me say this, I want you to take the belief that I just held and I want you to remove it, right? And so you give yourself, your subconscious, permission every time it hears that cue to release it from your body.
Love that.
And over time, it will release. And you'll get to the point where you could say anything. I literally do this exercise and we'll do it at my live event in a few weeks at the time of this recording with everyone in the audience. I'll first have them say, I am a millionaire, and figure out where it's lodged in their body. Like, where is it? I'll tell them what it means based on where it is, and then we'll do the work to reset their cellular memory to release it from their body. And they'll literally, in the moment, no longer feel the tension in their shoulder or in their stomach or in their lower back because we've reset their cellular memory. Yeah. And the beautiful thing is that once you understand it, we can all do this.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So something that came up at a trust meeting once is that you actually really do have these incredible spiritual gifts and you are actually a healer. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're a teacher, you're a writer, you're a speaker, you're an entrepreneur, obviously.
I'm every woman.
All of it. And you really are a healer and you have these psychic gifts or intuitive. I don't know how you would say it. So
I would just say the prophetic gifts.
Prophetic. Thank you. Okay, great. So, did you always have them, or was there a moment when they came in? I want to know more about that.
My gut says I always had them, but I wasn't always aware that I had them.
Yeah.
Right? I think that I believe that we're born, Jeremiah 1:5 says, before you were formed in your mother's womb, I knew you, I approved you. I think we come here with everything that we need to do the work that's purpose for us to do on the earth. Mm-hmm. I think that our purpose and our gifts reveal themselves to us over time, because it's like in the Karate Kid, right? When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Like, you have to be ready to receive and steward the gift for the gift to be made available for you to have access to it. Mm-hmm. And so at times in our life, as things happen, we come to a defining moment, we experience a cataclysmic reaction to whatever, and it unlocks a gift. We're now ready to do something purposeful with it. If I knew intuitively at 16, which was the first time I had a significant money trauma. I had been working since I was 13. My dad made me put half of every paycheck in the bank. When I came home I didn't have cheerleading practice one day, so I got the mail. I opened my bank statement and my money was gone. I thought we had been robbed, except my dad took my money and said, "Oh, you thought you were living here for free." Whole nother story. Mm-hmm. But if I knew I had these gifts at that particular point in time, I don't know that I would be able to hone and steward it like I am today.
Yeah.
But I do believe it was there. It was lying dormant. It was waiting for all these things to happen. It was waiting for that. It was waiting for the bankruptcy. It was waiting for the credit card debt. It was waiting for all the things to now manifest to show up, that for me to actually be a viable solution for people who's real, that if you cut me, I will bleed, to be able to help them to get to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And you see for people what's possible. Like you get again, I don't know how you would say it, but
no, I get
the vision for what's possible for them.
I do.
You are like you have that prophetic gift.
Yeah. I see yours possible right now, and it's really amazing. It's blinding me, actually.
Wow. It's real. I mean, it's such an incredible gift. And thank you for saying yes to it because, you and I are peers and I have learned so much from being in your presence. I mean, today, but also just at the gatherings that we go to. And I have found you're such an expander for me.
Thank you.
And so even though I will just say even though, you specialize in helping people get to that $1 million mark, as you said, it's the floor.
It's the floor. It's millions.
Right, exactly.
Right. We got to do the first million first,
Yeah.
but it's millions. It's to have more.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody listening has resistance and is thinking either that's not for me or that's greedy or why does anybody need millions or whatever? I mean, I think you have said it all already, but just in case there's some of that dust still clogging the pipes.
Yeah.
What's a message? What's a final message that you would want to share with them?
If you could have access to more so that you could do more good in the world, why wouldn't you want it? If you're a person who says, I just need enough, that means you're only helping yourself, and that's selfish. How dare you be selfish? It's like I think I say this often, not being confident is like telling God he didn't need to create you. How dare you not be confident? God created you out of everything. He chose you and gave you a massive purpose to share with the world. How dare you be selfish? Yeah. So I would just challenge you to think if that's really the truth or if that is a story that you're telling yourself, because that's what holds us back, those stories that we tell ourselves. And find the origin of the story, because 9 times out of 10 of any person who says that they were told in their formative years that they weren't worthy, either exactly in the words or through other words that translated as that for them, right? I think both my parents did the best that they could with what they had. But my mom used to tell us all the time, we were going to be just like our no good father. All the time. And if I had believed that, who would I be today, right? But I didn't believe it. I was like, there's no way in the world I'm going to be like him. But anyway, and he, my dad had pluses and minuses just like everyone else.
Of course.
And I'm so grateful that when my mom went to jail, he took custody of us. And, in my dad's last 33 days, we had an amazing time of, not that we had ever been completely on the outs, but we had an amazing time of reconciliation. And it was peaceful. It was everything either of us wanted to be able to say to each other before he became non-communicative. It got to be said. And it was just amazing, which is why I dedicated my book to him. He's actually the reason that I went hard in getting the book done once he passed, because as I told him about the idea, he was like, you've got to get that book out in the world. And I know he was really proud of me, and I know he was really grateful that all of the demons that haunted him through money and substance abuse and all of those things, that I've become a victor over those things, and I'm helping other people to be able to do the same thing.
So great. Thank you so much
Thanks
for being here.
Me.
This is really beautiful. If people want to connect more with you, where should they go? Where should they come find you?
Yeah, movetomillions.com, the book, the podcast, all the things are at movetomillions.com.
Amazing. And, I was just say, I highly recommend the podcast. If you have enjoyed listening to Darnyelle today, go listen. And the book is written just like it. So just all the things, tap in. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to be teaching a workshop for the first time at the Omega Institute in beautiful Rhinebeck, New York, October 18th through 20th, called More Than Enough. During the weekend workshop, we are going to dig into healing and accessing more abundance for time, energy, and money from an energetic, emotional, nervous system, and practical standpoint. There will be somatic practices, there will be journaling, there will be lecture, there will be dancing, and at the end of the workshop, you will have tapped into your access point for an experience of plenty in your life, specifically when it comes to time and money. If you want to know more to come join me for that workshop, head over to katenorthrup.com/omega. I'll see you there.